The wind came first, hot, bitter, full of grit. It dragged dust across the dead fences and hissed through the dry bones of the land. Then came the hoofbeats. Slow, heavy, each one louder than the last, like thunder walking on two legs. Clara Dunn stood on the porch, rifle in hand, her boots planted against the boards her father once built. The air trembled with the rhythm of that approaching horse. She didn't move, didn't blink. Only the wind tugged her hair across her cheek like strands of straw. Out on the trail, a dark shape grew against the burning sky. The horse was black, sleek, tired but proud. The man on its back rode straight and silent, the sun cutting his outline clean. Broad hat, polished boots, a long coat the color of dried blood. Silas Wren. Even before she saw his face, Clara knew. The whole town had whispered it. He's coming for Dunn's debt. The horse stopped at the edge of the yard. The rider dismounted, slow and deliberate. Dust curled around his spurs. He tied the reins to the post and looked up at her with eyes the color of worn iron. "Miss Dunn," he said. His voice was steady deep. "I came for your father's due." The words struck like a hammer. Clara lifted the rifle just enough for him to notice. "My father's dead. You'll get nothing from the grave." Silas didn't flinch. The grave don't pay debts. The living do. The wind moaned through the empty corral. A gate creaked somewhere, swinging loose. Behind her, the screen door tapped against its frame. Everything felt like it might break. "I'll pay," she said, though her voice cracked. "Just not today." He stepped forward. Not close, just enough for her to smell the trail dust and faint scent of tobacco. "You got cattle?" "They died last winter." "Land?" "Land don't grow money." He nodded once, as if confirming what he already knew. "Your father owed $800. That was 2 years back. With interest, that's near 1,000 now." Clara's knuckles tightened on the rifle. "Then take me to court." He almost smiled. "I didn't come for law. I came for right." Silence held. Even the wind seemed to stop. From the barn, old Jed Barnett appeared, wiping his hands on a rag. His back was bent from years of work, his beard silver and wild. "Mr. Wren," he said cautiously, "ain't much left here worth talking. Girl's done all she can." Silas turned his eyes on Jed. "I believe it." Then back to Clara. "Still, the world doesn't forgive what it's owed." Her jaw trembled, but she forced her words out. "My father died trying to fix what he broke. You'll not shame him now." Silas stared at her for a long moment. Then he reached into his coat, not for a gun, but for a folded paper. He looked at it, sighed once, and tucked it back away. "No shame," he said softly. "Just reckoning." He stepped to his horse and untied the reins. Clara thought he was leaving, but instead he turned back, his face unreadable under the shadow of his hat. "There's another way," he said. Clara frowned. "Another way? You come with me. Work it off." The rifle dipped an inch. "Work? I got a ranch outside Abilene. Big place. Needs hands that don't scare easy. You do the work, debt's gone by winter." Her heart pounded. She'd heard stories about men like him. Rich, ruthless, taking what they wanted under the name of mercy. "And if I say no?" she asked. He met her eyes. "Then I take the land. You'll be off it by sundown." The air felt like a rope tightening around her throat. Behind her, the porch groaned as Jed stepped closer. "Clara," he whispered, "maybe you ought to think on it." "I am thinking," she hissed back. She looked at Silas again. His face didn't hold greed or cruelty, just the kind of weariness that comes from too many miles and too many graves. He wasn't bluffing, but he didn't look hungry for the win either. Clara lowered the rifle slowly. "You'd have me leave this place. The only thing I got left of him." He nodded once. "I'd have you keep it, by earning it back." The sun bled deeper into the horizon, painting his coat crimson. The horse pawed the dirt impatiently. For a moment, the world seemed to hang still, dust hanging in gold air, the creak of wood, her father's ghost breathing in her ear. Finally, she spoke, quiet as prayer. "What kind of man takes a debtor's daughter instead of her land?" Silas looked away. "The kind that's lost enough to know land don't fill the hole." Her fingers trembled around the rifle stock. The wind picked up again, snapping the porch cloth, whistling through the slats like a warning. She thought of the ranch. Empty barn, dead well, fences gone to rot. Thought of the nights alone, the coyotes calling. Maybe the debt wasn't all that chained her here. Maybe it was the past itself. When she looked up again, Silas Wren was already on his horse. He didn't glance back, just said, "Be at the station by dawn. Or don't. Your choice." He turned his horse and rode off down the trail, a dark figure swallowed by sun, fire, and dust. Clara watched until the sound of hooves was gone, the desert swallowing all trace of him. Only then did she lower the rifle. Her breath came ragged. Jed laid a hand on her shoulder. "Girl, that man's dangerous. But he ain't a liar." She said nothing, just stared across the barren land, her father's land, where nothing grew but memory. The wind carried the faint echo of Silas's voice. "Come with me." As the last light faded, she whispered it back, as if testing how it felt in her mouth. "Come with me." Then she straightened her back, wiped her tears, and turned toward the barn. There were things to pack. By the time the moon rose over Silver Mesa, Clara Dunn had made her choice. And far out on the horizon, a single horse rode against the stars, waiting. The gate slammed behind her with the sound of a jail door. Dust swirled in the corral, dry and bitter, catching in Clara's throat. She blinked hard against the wind. All around her, men moved like shadows, branding irons glowing, ropes snapping, horses snorting under the weight of heat and command. "Keep her clear of the stallions," someone barked. She didn't know where to stand. The sun hit everything white and merciless, and her hands, blistered from the train rail and the long ride, hung useless at her sides. Silas Wren was nowhere in sight. A ranch hand, big as a bull and twice as loud, pointed her toward the stables. "You the Dunn girl, huh? Boss said you'd be working off a debt. You know your way around a shovel." Clara squared her jaw. "I know my way around a ranch." He laughed, a sound like gravel rolling in a tin can. "We'll see." She went to work. All day, shoveling stalls, hauling hay, scrubbing tack until her fingers bled. The men watched her, some with amusement, others with something colder. Each time she caught their eyes, she stood taller. The pride of her father's name burned too deep for her to bend. By sundown, the world was painted copper. She leaned against a fence, muscles screaming, hair stuck to her face. That's when she saw him, Silas, riding back from the far pasture, coat flapping like a black flag in the wind. He dismounted, gave his horse a pat, and walked toward her. "Hard day?" he asked. She didn't answer. He looked over her shoulder at the stalls, the water buckets, the stacked hay. "You work clean?" "Most quit by noon their first day." "I'm not most," she said flatly. He nodded, eyes narrowing as if weighing her words. "No, you ain't." For a while, they just stood there, the silence stretching thin between them. The sky behind him turned violet, the first stars pricking through the dark. Finally, he spoke. "You'll start in the ledgers tomorrow. I need someone who can read numbers without drinking half a bottle first." She frowned. "Why trust me with your books?" He didn't look at her when he said it. "Because liars can't keep accounts straight. I want to see if you can." Then he left, boots crunching over the dirt, leaving her staring after him, angry, confused, and maybe just a little curious. That night, Clara sat alone in the bunkhouse. The other hand's laughter drifted from the saloon in the main yard. She stared at her hands, raw and bruised, and at the small locket she'd hidden in her pocket, the only thing of her father she still had. The door creaked open. One of the ranch hands stepped in, smelling of whiskey and smoke. "Didn't figure a rich man like Wren keep a girl like you in the bunkhouse," he slurred. "He paying you in cash or in kindness?" Her chair scraped the floor as she stood. "Get out." He grinned, staggering a step closer. "I'm just a skin, sweetheart. Don't get all high and mighty." The door slammed open again. Silas filled the frame, his revolver drawn and steady. The drunk froze. "Outside," Silas said, voice like dry thunder. The man stumbled out, mumbling. Silas followed him halfway, then turned back to Clara. The lamplight carved deep lines into his face. "You all right?" She nodded stiffly. "I can take care of myself." He holstered the gun. "I reckon you can." He started to leave, then paused. "Don't let their talk stick to you. They don't know what that costs." When he was gone, she sat back down, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her palms. By the next morning, the air smelled of ink and dust. The study was nothing like the ranch yard. Quiet, polished, every surface shining. She sat at the heavy oak desk with the ledger open, rows of figures marching down the page. Silas stood behind her shoulder, arms crossed. "You'll mark each sale from the cattle drives," he said. "Then compare it with the feed costs. If it don't balance, I want to know why." She nodded without looking up. "You trust me with all this?" "I trust my own judgment," he said simply. Hours passed. The ticking of the clock was the only sound between them. Once, she looked up and noticed a photograph on a shelf, a woman and a boy, both smiling. Dust covered the frame. She didn't ask. But later, when he caught her looking, his voice was distant. "They're gone." Her pen stopped. "I'm sorry." He nodded, though his eyes stayed on the window. "Outlaws took the herd. Took more than that. Been collecting debts ever since." She understood then. The hardness in him wasn't greed. It was grief turned to iron. When he left the room, she stared after him for a long time, the ink on her fingers drying to black. That night, a storm gathered on the horizon. The wind turned sharp, rattling the shutters. Clara lay awake, listening to the restless horses in the stables, to the sigh of thunder crawling closer. She rose, pulled on her boots, and stepped outside. The ranch stretched silver under the lightning, beautiful, fragile, alive. A light flickered in Silas's study. He sat by the window, a glass in hand, staring at nothing. The thunder rolled like cannon fire across the plains. Without thinking, she went to the porch. "You should sleep," she said softly. He didn't look up. "Can't. Storms don't let me." Lightning flashed, and for an instant she saw the rawness in his face, something unguarded, something human. "Your father ever tell you what it's like to lose everything?" he asked. She shook her head. He said it once, then never spoke of it again. Silas turned toward her. Maybe he didn't have the words. The silence between them wasn't cold anymore, just full of ghosts. The thunder cracked again, closer now. She met his eyes, and for a heartbeat, neither of them looked away. Then he said it, low and heavy. "I know what it means to owe more than a man can pay. That's why you're here." She swallowed hard. "And what if I can't pay it either?" "You already are." Lightning lit the world white. Then darkness. When the storm broke, she was still standing there on the porch, watching him through the rain. The wind howled across the land like an old lament, and far off, a coyote answered it. The first gunshot shattered the night. Glass exploded from the window beside Clara's bed, scattering like stars. She dropped to the floor, heart hammering, breath catching in her throat. Another shot followed, closer this time. Then the low roar of men shouting from the yard. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. She crawled toward the door, grabbed the rifle she kept propped beside it, and eased it open. The hallway was black, lit only by flashes from outside. Lightning cracked, and in that brief burst of white she saw Silas, already awake, revolver drawn, coat half on, moving through the smoke. "They found me," he muttered. "Ooh." He didn't answer. Another volley hit the front of the house. Wood splintered. Horses screamed in the stables. Silas turned, grabbed her arm, and pulled her toward the back stairs. "Stay low." They moved through the narrow hall, feet silent on the old wood. Every step was a prayer the floor wouldn't creak. Outside, torches flickered, shadows of riders circling like wolves. In the courtyard, a voice bellowed, "Wren, you owe us blood for what you took." Clara froze. The name was familiar, rasped with rage and dust. Silas's jaw clenched. "Creed." He pushed her toward the back door. "Get to the barn. Saddle my horse. Go east till the ridge. Don't stop." She pulled free. "I'm not running. This isn't your fight." "It is now." The next shot punched through the doorframe, inches from his head. The wood spat splinters across her face. Silas fired back through the gap. Once, twice, and someone outside screamed. He turned to her. "You can shoot." She lifted the rifle, steady despite the tremor in her chest. "My father taught me." He gave the smallest nod. "Then cover the north side. They'll come from the corrals." The world became noise and motion. She ran for the barn, boots sliding through the mud. The smell of fire was everywhere, sharp, bitter. Bullets hissed past, thudding into fence posts and dirt. A lantern crashed near the hay pile, spilling flame. She stamped it out with her heel and ducked behind a wagon. From a yard came Silas's voice, low and cold. "You picked the wrong night, Creed." A reply, mocking, "No, Wren. I picked the only one you had left." Lightning split the sky. She saw them then. 6 riders, faces wrapped in scarves, rifles glinting. The Stillwater Riders. Her father's old stories whispered their name. Men who killed for hire, burned for pay, and left nothing behind but bones. She didn't think. She aimed. The rifle kicked hard into her shoulder. One rider dropped. Another turned his horse, screaming. "North side." Silas shouted. "I got it," she yelled back, reloading fast. Thunder rolled. Horses reared. The smell of smoke thickened as one of the barns went up in flame. Through the chaos, Jed appeared from the darkness, shotgun in hand. "Thought I'd find you two in trouble," he grunted, firing at a rider who fell backward into the mud. "Jed," Clara cried. "Don't thank me yet." He ducked as a bullet grazed the wagon, splintering the wood beside him. Silas was bleeding now, his shoulders soaked red, but he didn't stop. He fired with calm precision, one round after another, until the cylinder clicked empty. Clara dropped beside him behind a water trough. "You're hit. Later." He reloaded with shaking fingers. "Creed won't quit till one of us is dead." "Why? What did you do to him?" He looked at her, eyes hollow. "He worked for me once. Stole my cattle. Killed my family when I wouldn't pay for their silence. I took back what was mine, except him. He was hiding in Silver Mesa." Clara's breath caught. "Silver Mesa?" He nodded. "Your father was part of that gang." The world tilted. The noise of battle blurred to a dull roar. "He didn't tell you?" Silas asked quietly. She shook her head, tears cutting clean tracks through the soot on her face. "No. He owed me blood. I came for it. But I saw you and I couldn't finish what started." A shout cut through the air. Creed stepped from behind the burning barn, shotgun in hand, eyes wild in the firelight. "Wren," he roared, "you gonna hide behind another man's daughter?" Silas rose, pain twisting his face. "This ends now." He stepped out into the open, revolver raised. The fire behind him turned the smoke gold and red. Clara's hands shook around her rifle. "Don't," she whispered. Creed sneered. "You always did fancy yourself the righteous one. Let's see how righteous you bleed." The guns went off almost together. Silas staggered back, hit high in the chest. Creed laughed, until Clara's shot cut the sound in half. The bullet took him through the throat. He dropped to his knees, choking on his own fire. "That one's for my father," she said, voice trembling, "and for every sin he left me to pay." The remaining riders broke, spurred their horses, and vanished into the smoke. Silence fell. Clara ran to Silas, knelt beside him in the mud. His coat was soaked through, blood dark as oil beneath her hands. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Please, don't you dare leave now." He coughed, eyes fluttering open. "You shoot straight," Clara done. She almost laughed, almost cried. "You're not dying on me." He smiled faintly. "Guess the debt's settled." Lightning flashed one last time. The rain began, slow, heavy, washing the blood into the earth. Jed limped up, hat in hand. "Riders are gone. Ranch will burn some, but it'll stand." Clara pressed her hand against Silas's wound, her voice a rasp. "Help me get him inside." They carried him through the broken door as the wind howled and the rain poured harder, smothering the flames. By dawn, the fire was out. Smoke drifted across the yard like ghosts searching for a place to rest. Silas lay pale beneath the lamplight, breathing shallow. Clara sat beside him, soaked, shaking, her hand still holding his. The old storyteller's voice would come much later, over the crackle of another fire in another time.